Welcome to this presentation of the Paper Street Podcast. Welcome to Late to the Party, a program on the Paper Street Pictures Podcast Network. Your hosts for the following are myself, Shawn Talley. Joining me for this, as he traditionally does, a fellow member of the Paper Street Pictures production team. He is Mr. Cameron Burns. How goes it, Cam?
Shawn, we haven't done this for a couple of months. I hope I still remember how to do it. We've had a busy few months, and I'm excited to be back at it.
Yes, sir. We did take a little hiatus to do a revival recap after show for the television show Revival, which Paper Street Pictures made in conjunction with the Sci-Fi Network. And that was a very fun thing to do with our partner, Aaron B. Kuntz and Luke Boyce, who were the co-showrunners of that. But yes, we're back at it with both the Paper Street Podcast and Late to the Party. And yes, glad to be back. For those who have never listened to this, or for those who need a refresher, Cam, you mind telling the folks kind of what the gist of this particular program is?
Yeah, we like to reach out to someone we like, someone we think is interesting, someone who has a perspective on the film industry, someone who's seen a lot of movies, and just say, hey, what's a big-ass movie you've never seen before? Because we've all got them. And inevitably, they come back with 4 or 5 movies, and one of them usually jumps right off the page. We go, oh, man, we got to do that one. And so we bring them on, we chat them up, we figure out why they've, lived on the earth for so long and have never seen this movie. And then we send them on their way to watch it, and we bring them back and we talk about it. And we just kind of reach out to people we enjoy and say, what movie can we solve your blind spot on?
Indeed, and this time around, a person we have worked with directly on films, we have called her our final girl because of the Scare Package movies. Our guest, as you've seen in the description, is none other than Zoe Graham, and Zoe does have a blind spot or two, she did tell us, but the reason we picked the one that she threw out was not just due to the season in question, as we are in the deep into Halloween season, but her being a final girl and not having seen what they kind of call like a proto-final girl movie, Laurie Strode being one of the all-time iconic ones, based partly on the fact that she's done it several times now. But yeah, she was an OG one from 1978. So we thought Halloween, the 1978 original John Carpenter Halloween, was kind of the right fit this go round. And Cam, what's your relationship with this original Halloween movie?
I mean, I have seen this movie probably 50 times. This was in regular rotation around Halloween every year for me. Along with The Exorcist, they're like the 2 movies I immediately think of as a kid where people were just like, these are the scary movies. These are the scariest movies. And so, yeah, I've been a big fan of the Halloween series growing up, and every new one was, we'd rent it and watch it. They weren't all good, but at the time they were good. Like you don't realize when you're 10 that Halloween 5 is any worse than Halloween 2. But it's a series that I've always had a soft spot in my heart for, and I think the first movie is just an absolute masterpiece. I think it's one of the great horror movies ever, and kind of set the tone for slasher movies, which is my favorite subgenre. Mm-hmm. So I love Halloween.
Yeah, it was successful in its moment, so it made its name immediately, but time has also been very kind to it in that its legacy is just in how much in its wake. Granted, we'll get into it. There's other movies that did stuff first, but Halloween being such a success was a direct correlation to the response that was Friday the 13th and so many derivative slashers in its wake. But yeah, it's one that stands apart. Like you said, like The Exorcist, like in the 60s and 70s, there was only a few that really broke out. Jaws, Alien, they get kind of like lumped in other genres, but they're horror movies too, that every mainstream human being has heard of this movie. It's not.
But none of them were like Halloween. I mean, Halloween spun off an entire subgenre. I mean, along with Black Christmas, which we will, I'm sure, discuss later.
Yeah.
Those really spun off an entire subgenre of slasher movies, which when you and I were kids in the 80s were going on a God tier run. So I mean, yeah, Halloween is definitely on par with all those great movies you mentioned, but it spiraled a billion, imitators. Mm-hmm. In a way that Jaws and those movies certainly did as well, but not to this degree.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers are like the most normie person can kind of name check those as like those iconic slashers. And it helps too that this kind of franchise never went away. It hasn't even gone away long enough to have a quote unquote legacy sequel. It's just always been reinvented in some capacity, which we'll get into the franchise too. And it's kind of convoluted multiple timelines. But let's before we do that, let's actually pitch to our guest and first ask Mrs. Zoe Graham how and why she never got around to seeing your OG Halloween.
Let's do it.
Joining us on this installment is not just an actress, but a certified card-carrying final girl herself. You've seen her in films like Richard Linklater's Best Picture nominated Boyhood, as Julia Roberts' daughter in Secret in Their Eyes, as well as features including Support the Girls, Infinity Baby, and Rudderless. But most importantly, she crushed it in the role of Jessie, the badass final girl in Paper Street's own movies Scare Package and Scare Package 2. Please welcome the wonderful Zoe Graham. Zoe, thank you for joining us here.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. That was so nice.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. I wrote it for the first time, so sweet vindication. We'll let the fans decide whether I should continue going forward writing the intros.
Sound off.
Yeah, mine wouldn't have been nearly as glowing. What are you talking about? I would have been more glowing. But yeah.
Shawn's had a lot of derogatory terms and a little bit of racism. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know about her Greek heritage till just now. So. No, I'm kidding. Is that a group you can be offensive against? I don't even know.
I don't think you're allowed to be offensive against any groups. Well, I mean,
sir, I have turned on the news lately, and it seems like you very much are.
Okay, we have already 30 seconds into this podcast. We're already rusty. Have to go in and edit.
Let's get back into it. Let's say this. One more thing about our guest, Zoe Graham. She has never seen the 1978 horror staple that is John Carpenter's Halloween.
Okay, Zoe, explain yourself. What is going on here?
I'm so sorry. I'm a scaredy cat. I'm a huge scaredy cat. Horror was not... Anytime I watched anything vaguely scary, and by vaguely scary, I do mean the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, nightmares for weeks. Spy Kids, the Thumbs. I went home from school because I was like making myself sick over the Thumbs are going to come get me. So it took starting to work in horror to start seeing some, but I get really freaked out. So it's been slow going. And I've known that this is on the docket for a while. I have needed to. I love Jamie Lee. So what am I doing?
I mean, first of all, the fact that you couldn't handle Spy Kids has me a little worried about where this whole thing is going to go. But
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't, as the preeminent 2020s final girl, you didn't go back and research the goats of the Final Girl Hall of Fame?
I have done some. But again, I never made a big deal out of it on set because I was worried it would turn into a thing. I just didn't want anyone to start knowing how much of a scaredy cat I was. And then you guys start scaring me on set. And then I am afraid to come to work. I just have kind of like tried to keep it quiet. And if there's something, I believe I watched some Saws for Scare Package 2. That was the request. That. No.
Diminishing returns on a few of those late sequels.
But that's good. It was all relevant. I needed it, And on other movie, I had somebody show me Funny Games for.
Oh man, that's
yeah. So
nice
I'm
fare
okay.
There.
I'm okay. I can handle it now. I've gotten over my thumb trauma.
I am actually ignorant to what you're talking about. I thought I'd seen a Spy Kids movie, but I might have to look that up as soon as we are off the show because I don't have any idea what you're talking about when you keep saying thumbs.
Next episode.
Cameron, are you aware
Spy
of
Kids?
Thumb?
I am not. I have never seen Spy Kids.
No.
Okay.
What
Don't tell Robert Rodriguez.
Wait, hold on. I think Zoe just became the host and she's going to make us watch Spy Kids.
Turn this around. As someone who grew up in Austin, Spy Kids was everything to me. I was exactly the right age.
That's the problem, Zoe, is that you are younger than Shawn and I. And we were like 25 when Spy Kids came out. And so we were not the right age. But I didn't know there was even horror adjacent things going on, if I'm being honest.
There's not. It's not scary at all. It's not meant to be scary. It was just, I'm very sensitive.
All right, fair enough. That's why it didn't trip our radars, I guess. We've seen many a Rodriguez picture, of course. We were devotees to the 1 minute film school and stuff.
Zoe, you're going to get us kicked out of Austin by getting on Robert Rodriguez's bad side. We can't have that.
Cam, you don't have kids, so I'll give you a pass, but Shawn, come on.
Oh no, my son at least is approaching that age where when my niece and nephew who are a decade older than he is had told me they started finally watching movies in the past 5 or 6 years, and my niece goes, I finally watched the Robert Rodriguez trilogy. And I, of course, thought she meant the Desperado movies. And then she goes, no, the Spy Kids movies. And I went, oh,
no.
I've not seen those. Okay. So, yeah, I've seen Shark Boy and Llama Girl, so I'm not completely unhip to the world of those things.
It's a sibling, yeah.
I will get on that definitely with my children being of age now. So apologies to Rodriguez's whole camp, including Mr. Nixon. Don't ever listen to this episode, sir.
Yeah, we have gone radically off track already. Let me try to do my best to get us on track.
So we're fucked if Cameron's the one getting us back on track.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
The inmates are taking over the asylum. Zoe, so you haven't seen Halloween, but I'm curious. It is a movie very much in the lexicon. Like, how much cultural osmosis do you think you've taken in on Halloween? What do you actually know? What do you not know? How much of it is like just kind of seeped in over the years?
A lot of horror culture has come to me through like certainly working on Scare Package and like certain tropes being referenced. So then when I see them in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I know this is going to happen because the car wouldn't start when we did the thing. But I also feel like I loved Hot Topic as a kid. And so I've seen everybody's face. I know that the correct me if I'm wrong, but the mask is a Captain Kirk mask inside out.
Kind of.
Okay.
You're all around it.
Okay.
Taken and painted white.
Yes. So I vaguely know, I know the scary guys' faces. You know what I mean? But matching the final girl to the scary face I've seen to the movie title, not always correct.
But you have that on Halloween, right? You can.
I imagine so. It's an inside out looking face. Eyes, no eyes, kind of. Jamie Lee Curtis.
This is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to come back after you've watched it. You know, like, I mean, you know what everyone knows about, like, that's seen Michael Myers on a commercial and a poster and a whatever, but like,
exactly.
I love how little you otherwise know. It's going to be very interesting to see, especially because, like you said, like, it's not a weird one-off. So it's not like, Shawn, when we had Alex Cuervo, a fine composer of the Scare Package movies, and he hadn't seen Scream, but he'd seen everything kind of around it. And this is, you're definitely more of just a horror novice in general.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see kind of where you land and how you take in some of this stuff. Because Halloween really, without getting, doing the podcast before the podcast, Halloween kind of wrote the book on the kind of how the modern horror slashers play. And so it'll be interesting to see where you land on stuff and what you recognize from other stuff. And it's going to be a fun one, I think.
Yeah. A person that maybe grew up has watched 250 horror movies and then watches Halloween would be like, oh, this is really quaint. This is full of tropes, but they're like not realizing they started some of the tropes. But again, part of how Zoe and Halloween linked up for us on this podcast is we did ask her about a couple blind spots. And because she is our final girl, Cameron actually is the one that made the suggestion, like the proto-final girl being Laurie Strode. It only makes sense to make her watch Halloween. And
well, hold on. Not make her. We're not going to make her.
No, not make her.
Thrilled to.
We asked her politely if she'd want to.
Exactly.
Yes.
She is killed. I mean, you've seen Scare Package and Scare Package 2. You don't make Zoe do anything. She will kill you. She will kill you.
And you mentioned her being a bit of a novice, which makes this even better because these things may not feel quaint. These things might actually scare her to death, knowing that thumbs, which whatever the hell that is, has scared her to death. But
I picture it as like someone's thumbs get their own thumbs.
Imagine your arms are each one thumb, your legs are each one thumb, and your head is a thumb.
Okay. It's like a body of thumbs.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking to two guys whose heads do look like thumbs. We are just giant thumbs.
It's like a starfish of thumbs. Which sounds horrifying. When I say it like that, I get it. I feel for kindergarten.
Okay.
I pictured what I pictured was a guy who put his thumbs, gave you like the thumbs up, and then the thumb gave another thumbs up. And the thumb had thumbs. That's what I meant.
Itself to open up like a palm, and there were 5 thumbs.
More thumbs, yes. Like thumbception, kind of. Yeah. We have rapidly lost control.
My other point was her being a bit of a novice. She did tell us off air that she's in the middle of a challenge of sorts with some friends. So she is watching a few horror movies. I think you said 10, right? You're trying to knock out 10 in the month of October. Do you mind saying what those were?
Absolutely. So this is a selection of horror movies that was specifically curated for this group of friends, which is me, my partner, and this other couple who are like diehard horror. They've seen everything. They want us to go to horror movies with them. So they're trying to like lure us in. So they also have like thought about what is specifically scary to us and maybe avoided those. So don't, be like, oh, these are baby horror movies. This is a very considered program.
No judging.
Okay. The first one was Poltergeist. I'd never seen Poltergeist. And this is also a vulnerable moment that I'm admitting I've never seen any of these movies.
I feel like we could record a whole series of podcasts based on the movies she's about to say out loud.
We do mention this is not a shame thing here. It's about helping cure a blind spot.
Thank you so much.
This is no shame.
We're doing the Lord's work.
And I will say it has been a fantastic October because it has just been like, what if there was an entirely new genre of movies that you would love that already exists out there and a whole history that you have no access to? And you get to like slow roll them and have them specially picked for you. It's been incredible.
That's how Shawn's going to feel when he starts the Spy Kids movies.
Oh, I feel the same way. I cannot wait. I need a play-by-play of Spy Kids. Okay. Poltergeist was the first one. Loved it. A little scary. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little freaked out. No bad dreams. So we moved on forward. American Werewolf in London. I stressed that I was very interested in practical effects and like special effects makeup and stuff. I actually think that was one of the first things we talked about between me and Paper Street was me saying like, so how are you going to do this thing where you throw a guy through the wall? And you guys were like,
I remember that in the casting session. You were like very curious how we were actually going to make stuff work. I remember that. I'm
a sucker for it. So I think that was perhaps specifically.
That's also a good gateway horror movie for adults because it isn't super, it's good, but it's not super scary. So I think it's a good one to start people off with.
And it's kind of sexy too. Like there's weird, it's like funny sexy where there's like, they're randomly in a porn movie theater at it was great. Right. Let the Right One In.
Love that one.
Absolute Stone Cold classic.
Fantastic movie. Rosemary's Baby after that.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yes. Then Dead Alive.
Oh
man, they went there.
They went there. And again, they were so thoughtful with this. They're like not trying to do, at first they were like, we have like 3 zombie movies. You know, they've been shuffling. And last night was 28 Days Later.
Oh, another personal favorite.
Yes. Yeah. And it was fantastic. Oh, so
that's a good list. And you said Halloween. You excused Halloween because you were going to do the podcast.
Yes. And now they absolutely would like to, they want to watch it with me. It was kind of on the original list. They have there's a couple mystery screenings later on where they were like, we want to see how scared you get. We'll make it a baby movie or an actually scary movie. And I think this will have to be extra credit. I don't think it will count as one of my 10, but I'm happy with it. I'm thrilled.
No, all good. And if you happen to watch it with them, cool. They want to supply you some of their notes, that's fine. We'll take them.
One of them already said, I would love to watch it with you, but I will need to be like muzzled because she loves it so much that she's like, I'm going to ruin it for you.
Don't do that.
I just wish I could go back to a world where I could watch these movies for the first time again.
And that's what these friends have been telling me is like watching us watch these movies for the first time and I think maybe it was during Poltergeist. One of my friends looked over at me and she was just like, you were like a baby seeing television for the first time. Like your face was so shocked and thrilled by it. I think
literally walked up to the TV, put your hands on it, look back at it, like, I'm here.
Exactly. Yes. So I think it's been so awesome to experience, and I think that they feel the same way.
That's very cool. Yeah. I'm with Cameron. It's there's a few movies out there where you're like, oh man, if I could re-experience that again as a the childlike wonder. That's why we all do this. Still, we love the movies. At the end of the day, no matter how much we know how the sausage gets made, it's still like a magical thing.
Oh, completely.
Once in a while for us. We will send you on your way here momentarily then, because again, we're all excited to see just based on the list that they gave you and how you've taken to them all so far, which by the way, to your friends and your partner, whoever kind of came up with it, very good job, because those were,
well
you
done.
You named a bunch of just A pluses in my opinion.
It has been home run after home run for me.
Do you not know in advance what the movie's going to be?
No, I've known everything until tomorrow night. We have a mystery screening, and we have said we have not been so scared that we can't handle a little more scare. So I will update you guys with what that is.
I'm excited when we reconvene in a few days after you've watched Halloween. Hopefully there's a couple more we can talk about.
Yes.
No, for sure. Yeah. I'll have to get an update on that list.
Yeah. Well, let's let Zoe go watch a movie and let's reconvene after.
That sounds like a plan. We will return in just a moment here to get Zoe's fresh thoughts on the film and so much more, so stay tuned. Hey there, welcome back. What was mere seconds for you, the listener, was a good deal more for us. When we last left off with you, though, our guest, Zoe Graham, had not seen Halloween. She was late to the party, but we are glad she made it, and we welcome her back, a more cultured individual, a more learned film viewer, horror movie viewer, someone who has now seen the 1978, very influential, very iconic horror film Halloween. Zoe, are you feeling any or all of the aforementioned?
I feel so much more learned. So much more. And we're going to get into all of it, I'm sure.
Yes, we are.
I hope so. I hope
But
so.
before we do, only because we dropped this at the intro a couple days ago as we were recording, but you had mentioned you're on a Halloween binge yourself right now, and you had said Poltergeist was on the list and a few other iconic movies. Can you tell us, you kind of teased us that you were about to watch one right as you left us last time. What have you seen in the days since?
So what I have seen in the days since, I believe that next day we saw The Barbarian.
Oh,
Yes.
the newer movie. Yeah.
And it was so different from the rest of the programming so far. It was such a left turn, and it just felt like we were getting a little taste of like, here is all of the start of it, and it's going to go places you never thought it was going to go.
Yeah, that movie is built on like crazy left turns. There's a few of them in there. Yeah.
Totally. And I don't know that I had so many friends see that movie when it was first coming out and wanted to talk about it, and I hate not being part of those conversations, but at the time I thought I can't handle that. So I had actually read like the entire synopsis tip to tail. I know everything that happens in that movie, and the person who programmed it into our schedule was so pissed when he found out that he had scheduled it, and I was like, what can I say? I'm sorry, I know all about this. So we watched Barbarian, and then Halloween was right maybe a couple days after that, and then today I watched Black Christmas.
That's the one, Cameron. I was teasing off there. I was like, oh, she watched that one.
That's hilarious because I have a whole rant.
There's a few things in our notes that these two movies relate to each other in a few ways, but we will get into that. So the main attraction though is Halloween in this go round. So we're glad you saw that too, which is again a checklist type one you would have to knock off if you're going to do the iconic stuff and the kind of pre-trope iconoclast type movies.
Yes.
But as far as John Carpenter's Halloween goes, can you give us your kind of macro overall thoughts on how it took?
I really wish that I had a hot take to give you right now. I was hoping to come in with like, man, that ripped so hard and I love this part about this part and this part. Or I was even open to, I hated that so much and here's why. I'm ready to. And I think that when I left it, I really enjoyed the experience and it was so creepy, and I could see already the piece that like really hit me was that image of being watched by a very still figure. I feel like that has permeated culture so far into my life that like that's been there. But I think that I don't have, when I was talking to these my horror diehard friends about it, I just didn't have the like placement of it within history yet. Like Halloween's spot in it, and watching Black Christmas helped me so much to like understand what Halloween is and why it's so important.
It's funny because I had seen this a couple of years ago, but this is a weird movie where like I've seen it a bunch of times, but I always seem to remember it slightly different from what it actually is.
Totally.
And watching it this time, it was a little slower than I remembered and I just remember thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to play to someone who hasn't seen a lot of these movies and has seen mostly modern movies, which move way faster and, attention span theater is much shorter. I mean, it spends a good hour of the hour and a half with Michael just watching. So I was curious how it was going to land with you. And I definitely thought there was a chance it could go sideways just because of how deliberate the movie is. I do think it's kind of a masterclass in shot composition because it isn't doing a lot early on, but it also still works, which I think is interesting. But yeah, I was curious how it was going to land with you. It's one of those movies that it may not work for everybody because it does take its sweet time to get moving.
And I don't mind a movie that is quiet in moments or like takes its time to get somewhere. I think I just didn't have enough of a foothold at the start where I'm kind of looking at Laurie and I want her to be I don't know, I guess I'm more used to a little more spice from her, or like her friends didn't really seem like they like each other that much. I just couldn't find where to like how to get my claws into it. And then sort of thinking more about like what came after and what came before, I am sort of viewing it, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm viewing it as like a distillation. It's like a proof of concept distillation of horror, of like this. It's like the purest form.
Yeah, it basically is the no bells and whistles like slasher movie, which is why when everyone keeps talking about rebooting Halloween, what I always come back to is what is there to reboot? Mm-hmm. What Halloween really is is regular girl, faceless, reasonless killer run into each other, chaos ensues. That's really all it is. There's not, I mean, as we'll, I'm sure, talk about, they will try to shoehorn all kinds of shenanigans and backstory into this thing. But at its truest form, Halloween works because, you know, it could happen. And it's the slasher movie that could actually happen. Like Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, those characters are a little more heightened and not real. Michael Myers is especially in this movie, is just a guy.
Yeah.
Like he's just kind of evil incarnate. So yeah, it is kind of the template by which other movies went further.
Well, to her other point, too, about the final girl aspect of Laurie, a lot of us put the baggage of the sequels and the franchises on these people. When we think of Ripley, we think of her being a badass because of the sequels. And we think of Sarah Connor, same thing. And Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street, they were kind of seasoned after a few attempts, you know? And Laurie gets that way, too, to Zoe's point. Laurie certainly becomes that type of hardened person with a lot more agency. But this is very much just like a 19-year-old girl just getting haunted by who knows what. She has no idea what's happening.
And I think even because my experience with Jamie Lee Curtis is that she's an adult woman, and she had she was like so grounded even when she was 19 in her acting, and very like lived in, but she has such an adult face and like the way that she carries herself that it was almost like, gosh, I don't know. It just felt like I was having trouble placing her as a teenager, even though she was so naturalistic.
Yeah. I had to look it up too. I had to look up to make sure because she did look older, and I know that's a thing from the 70s and 80s in general, but I wasn't certain that she was, when she filmed it, she was 19 playing high school, so a couple years prior, but she wasn't 90210ing it, you know, she wasn't like
totally
35, but she has always had that look. You're right. It's hard to kind of trust that she's a true teenager, but she really was when filming it.
Well, I think she also feels a little more like an old soul than, like, her two friends are just kind of goofball hornballs, and like she is not that. She is very much like the responsible one who dresses different from her friends, and so like you do kind of wonder why she's friends with her friends in this movie a little bit. They're very different from her, which I think is possibly the point, but also makes for some weird dynamics.
Yeah, when I saw that she had brought knitting over to babysit, I was like, I love this girl. And I know this girl. I knew this girl. Was I that girl?
Are you still that girl?
1,000,000%, yes. Yeah. When the knitting needle scene happened, I was thrilled. I could not believe that no one had told me that. Maybe they wanted me to be surprised by it. But with the number of knitting needles that I've had on various film sets, nobody's ever made a joke.
Have you ever stabbed anyone with a knitting needle?
I mean, myself on accident, but not otherwise. And not in such a jugular way.
Jugular. I don't think I've ever seen the word jugular used quite that way before. It is interesting that because you're kind of going through the journey, we're kind of coming at this more scholarly, I think, than sometimes we do. Also, this is a movie that is kind of considered a modern, or not even modern, just a masterpiece. And so it's really fortunate, I think, that you were able to see Black Christmas, because it was not nearly as popular in the time, and it has been, I mean, it's a classic in its own right, but it's not on the level of Halloween. And for some of the reasons we just talked about, of Halloween writing the book on how slashers would kind of move forward, I think often Halloween gets credit for doing first some of the things that Black Christmas actually does first, just because Halloween outshined it. And it's a very similar conceit, a very similar opening with the first person, which Halloween always gets credit for. And also the killer, who we don't really know or particularly care why they're doing it. Yeah. And so there's a lot about Black Christmas, which is a movie that I adore, and I think it's shortchanged, that people just assume Halloween did because everyone's seen Halloween and only some people have seen Black Christmas. But it is, I would be interested to kind of hear your take on Black Christmas, having seen it so close to Halloween.
Well, the fact that you called this like a scholarly or academic, more academic rather than just an emotional take, that really has been how I've been thinking about it, because Halloween feels so much bigger than I liked it or I didn't like it. And anything past that feels like I need to be more educated about the genre as a whole to really comment on it. So then I was like listening to podcasts about Halloween and where it sits in history, and Black Christmas kept on coming up over and over again, talking about it being like it was kind of in talks to be a sequel when they were very first talking about Halloween. And I was like, well, then I need to see this part, because I immediately wanted to get more context from the later Halloweens, but then I was thinking, well, what if we need to watch more Halloweens later for another pond? I can't go that way, so I gotta go to the past. And I loved Black Christmas. I thought that was awesome. It felt very urban legend to me in a way that Halloween did not. The call is coming from inside the house is so scary stories to tell in the dark.
Another thing, by the way, that movie does not get credit for. I think, what's the movie where that's like basically the entire premise of the movie? Carol Kane is the lead as a teenager. When a Stranger Calls, I think. Yeah. But that movie gets the credit for that. And like Black Christmas just can't catch a break. It's just never getting credit for the stuff it does.
Well, even that like repeated, the fact that we never find out who Billy is and the last line is like talking about Billy again feels very like stories that kids tell each other on the playground. And when I was looking up some just like people talking about those two movies in conversation with each other, someone was saying that Black Christmas feels more grotesque and realistic and horrifying, and that Halloween feels more like a fable. And I totally feel like it's the opposite. I feel like Black Christmas feels like it can be fun because it's so insane. And in that reserve, Halloween feels so much scarier and more real to me.
Yeah, I think so. I think Halloween, it's kind of stripped down to the most basic parts. Yeah. Black Christmas feels more... It feels like the movie that should have come after Halloween, not before.
Yes.
It feels like a more fully formed modern slasher. And so it's weird that they were in that order. Also, it is When a Stranger Calls in 1979, which is a movie that gets the credit for that because that is the entire premise of that movie.
We'll get into this franchise shortly here, but what's funny is Halloween 3 is one of the movies that had gotten such a positive reassessment over the last few decades, but alongside Black Christmas, which like Cameron said was a little bit buried in its day, but is so well regarded now in hindsight, and seeing how even progressive it was in parts and other just aspects of what it covered. It's hard to believe that was 1974, but again, the 70s were greatest film decade ever. I don't care what anybody says. They were experimenting in every way. Yeah.
Well, is there anyone out there stooping for any other decade than the 70s?
Young people who haven't seen enough.
Yeah.
but yeah, anybody our age, I think, will say it's hard to even argue it. Even when you look at just like the Best Picture nominee blocks of those years, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, these are insane.
There is no discussion for Best Film Decade. Full stop. Yeah. There is no discussion. The 70s by a mile. If you split the 70s in half, those two decades
still my best
would fight for what is the best. 100%. Yeah, it's just it's night and day.
Yeah, it's funny. This has been the podcast where we're talking about other movies more than the movie for the first time ever. But it is funny how Black Christmas, it does feel like a perfect companion for this to talk about because of how much stuff, again, fair or unfair, Halloween got, was one of the most successful indie movies of all time. $300,000 budget at the time, shot for 20 days. And then it ended up making like 74 million US. And, adjusted for inflation wise, it would be around the 300 million mark right now. So it was a mega hit. So of course, a lot of things kind of came in its wake. Friday the 13th and everything will be more directly credited to Halloween than things like Black Christmas and Psycho. But
also insanely that it was written in under 2 weeks based on originally possibly, like Zoe said, thought to be a Black Christmas sequel, but based on Irvin Yablans, who's one of the producers, had a pitch for something called The Babysitter Murders, which was the working title for a long time, which was killer kills babysitters on Halloween, and that was pretty much it. And Carpenter ran off with those two kind of bullet points and threw a little haunted house movie magic into it and came back with this. And it's pretty crazy that in under 2 weeks this thing was written, and then for $300,000 in 20 days, a movie that people talk about up there with The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind as like absolute stone cold classics was born of such humble beginnings. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I read that all of those girls had duplicate jobs on set. Like Jamie Lee Curtis was running errands for production while she was in this movie, which cracks me up so much. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. That was this was her first 2 jobs, probably. Yeah, it was supposedly a small set. I mean, multiple people that I think there were 7 people in total who actually played Michael at different points in the movie, but a couple of them were just people who were doing something else on set who just, hey, we need your arm for a second. So yeah, this was down and dirty, small cast of not very many people, and like half the people were just putting leaves on the ground in California to try to make it look like Illinois. So yeah, it was definitely a small cast and a lot of crossover.
Zoe, I don't know how much time you spent in the LA area, but did you feel like it was Midwest, or when Loomis is stopping halfway and there's mountains behind him, did you realize that they're badly faking the Midwest?
Honestly, I'm so not a when I'm traveling at all and I'm seeing a friend in a different state and someone says, "Oh, what route did you take to get here?" I'm like, please don't ask me that question. I'm never really paying attention.
Right.
No, I'm never paying attention to like. That sounds really awful. Where I am in the world, so it didn't bother me at all.
I also think in good movies, people don't even think to pay attention to stuff like that, the continuity errors, and people don't care. It's only when people's minds wander do they start to find that stuff and hone in on that stuff. And so, yeah, I don't think most people even, I mean, I've known it forever, but I never watch it and think, oh, this is so obviously California.
No, the second half of the movie is also in darkness, so it's not even a question. But the first half, if you look way in the background, you'll catch a palm tree or two, and it's like, it's fine. But it's South Pasadena is where they filmed the majority of it. I
was too busy getting, like, the side of Michael's head would enter the frame, and there would be a big music sting, and then I was legitimately freaked out. So I was busy.
I like to watch him drive by in the car and be like, can we tell it's him? Who's in there? Who's driving? They do such a good job of hiding him in kind of plain sight there. And also I love how they got in front of the why, when and how did Michael Myers learn to drive a car thing, where they're just like, well, I don't know, but clearly he is. It's just like, oh, okay. I guess we're just going with that as an explanation. Cool. He's driving a car now. You know, he's pure evil. Evil can drive a car. That's just how it works.
Well, if he can lug the headstone, he can drive the car.
He had 150 some miles to go, so he kind of learned on the job as he was heading back toward Haddonfield.
I mean, he did a pretty good job of the peel out and the turnaround in the very beginning when he throws the nurse lady. The poor nurse who just came from the Red River Lounge or whatever it was on the Matchbox. But yeah, that poor lady showed up on the wrong first day, got tossed out of the car, and he did a pretty good job of driving out of there. But yeah, I love that like Loomis's theory was that someone taught him. Like there was some sort of like mass conspiracy.
I'm sure there's plenty of things that could be said about the concept of like escaped mental patients, but that shot of all those people in those gowns was so beautiful and scary.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, I said a little bit earlier, but I don't know that, this movie gets a lot of credit for a lot of things, but I don't know that it gets enough credit for its shot composition. There are some absolutely beautiful shots in this movie. Everyone talks about the one where you see Michael's face come out of the black.
That's the one I was going to say. I thought I was being original, of course.
No, Zoe, there's nothing original about Halloween. You're not bringing a fresh take to this conversation, I can assure you. But,
that's why I had
but there are so many good ones. There are so many good ones, and when they're tracking him outside the school, like there's just a bunch of very, very cool shots. And if there weren't, I think it would have gotten very boring very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and I know it's been talked about and it's been memed to death, but like when Michael pretends to be Bob by putting the ghost thing on in the glasses, what just an number one scamp. What a great thing.
Yes.
To do. He's just having the best time. This is a man who has not been outside of his cell for like 15 years, and he is living the life. He is digging shit up. He's driving cars. He's pretending to be a ghost. What a good time.
I think the ghost shot is like the most fun of the whole movie. Like it's the silliest part for me.
Yeah, it's the only time he's silly. Like the friends are kind of always out doing weird shit and being dopey. I do love that the friend nearly gets them all killed by yelling at a driver for driving too fast in the first like 15 minutes. This is like, that's why you never do that, because it could be Michael Myers driving that car and he could stop and murder you. So just like let him go. But yeah, there's definitely goofy stuff, but that's the only time where Michael's kind of allowed to be goofy.
That's the only goofy part where I have that feeling a little bit of like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing at this. You know, like that kind of like, that kind of funny that I think is like maybe my main way into horror in general.
Yeah, because by then the bodies have started to pile up and you're like, oh, now I know what's happening and now I'm still laughing. So it is an odd choice. I don't know that they knew that it was going to kind of come off as funny and strange as it did, but it's one of my favorite parts in the whole movie. So, you know, it works for me. It's also funny rewatching it, how You just think, at least, this is the only one you've seen, so maybe you don't. But like when you've watched the whole series, or even maybe just by cultural osmosis, you think of Michael Myers as like a knife wielding maniac. And his first like 3 kills are not particularly knife related. He's doing a lot of choking, and like the knife comes into play a little bit, but he's not. He becomes very much knife centric, but he's really not in this movie. It's just the thing that he eventually carries around. But most of his kills aren't that. He's doing a lot of choking.
It doesn't seem fixated on the knife overly much. It doesn't feel integral to the kill to him in this one, at least.
No, that is definitely something that comes later. Also, Zoe, because as we talked about, you are the final girl of the scare package, hopefully soon to be trilogy. Did you clock the head tilt? Because this is the origin of the head tilt, where the killer kind of turns their head confused. He does that a few times in this one.
A million things that honestly, I'm glad I didn't try to like get everything before we shot, because it would never have been possible. And it would have been, I think it would have been overwhelming how much is in how many references are in those scripts. We should tally up how many hours it would take of viewing to understand every reference, even just in the first scare package.
So on Scare Package 2, we did a
Blu-ray special feature.
Yeah, I think it was on 2 anyways. We did a pop-up video.
That is awesome.
Thing of all the references, and probably not all the ones that we could remember and whatever. But
there's like a pop-up 120 plus, I remember. And Alex Shooting was able to throw those together. After we kept finding more, we'd watch again, like, oh wait, hold on, that was the Texas Chainsaw Knob. Write that in.
I'm sure there's still stuff that isn't like it pops into your brain and then goes, and you never think about it again. But yeah, there's a bunch, but the head tilt is such a slasher thing, and the Impaler does it so well. Dustin playing the Impaler does it so well in the Scare Package movies that I was curious if you clocked that.
Well, and certainly the behind the seat, that might be a reference to even a different movie, but the jump scare choke from the back seat. Totally.
Yeah, this is definitely, I do think this is the first movie to do the killer pops up in the back seat.
Yeah.
That becomes, I don't know that I remember
the 70s, yeah.
I don't know that I remembered that being a Halloween thing. That is a thing, Zoe, as you move on into more slashers, especially as you get into kind of the more derivative, slightly less good version, you will start to see the killer pop up in the back seat hundreds of times. It becomes a thing.
I think even just urban legends of like, I feel like I grew up with the concept of like, you look behind the seat before you drive or get 100%. In. Yeah,
that becomes one of the bigger slasher tropes, probably. So where do we want to go from here?
We'll go into a few things. Director John Carpenter. I don't know if we'll talk blind spots at the end of the show, but I don't know if you have any major John Carpenter blind spots. He's done everything from The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Christine, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, among other kind of. He's just a genre king to a lot of people on the genre Mount Rushmore. But he had done a couple TV movies. He'd done a movie called Dark Star and then Assault on Precinct 13. But this was like his breakout success. I mean, it really sent him into another atmosphere. He worked with producer Deborah Hill, who also is kind of iconic. There's people who wear, horror conventions produced by Deborah Hill t-shirts. She worked with Carpenter on a lot of his early features, and she also has a ton of Kathleen Kennedy level, like non-Carpenter producing credits, including Clue, The Dead Zone, Adventures in Babysitting, one of Cameron's and my go-to favorite 80s comedies, The Fisher King
awesome
even.
Deborah Hill also, she's not credited as a co-writer, but pretty much everyone says Deborah Hill was a co-writer on this, and one of the reason the female characters feel like real people and not badly written stereotypes by 40-year-old men is because of Deborah Hill. So I think that's part of the reason everybody wears the Produced by Deborah Hill shirt, is because she didn't, for a long time anyways, didn't get as much credit for this movie.
A woman didn't get enough credit in the film industry?
Shocking, I know. Didn't get enough credit for this movie in this series. Really, it became so Carpenter-centric, even though he didn't really ask for that. But Deborah Hill, this movie and this series does not become a thing without Deborah Hill. Like, pretty much everyone is in agreement on that from the set, from director. I mean, Carpenter will tell you that. Jamie Lee Curtis will tell you that. They'll all tell you that.
I would say the third and other most notable person just behind the camera was the guy behind the camera, director of photography, Dean Cundy, whose credits include some Oscar winners. He worked with Carpenter again on The Fog, The Thing. He did the Back to the Future trilogy. He did Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He did Jurassic Park. He did Apollo 13. He has a couple statues on his mantle. He certainly, again, meat and potatoes filmmaking. You see kind of an early look at what he was up to, but he certainly leveled up as he went through his career as a DP.
Yeah, he kind of started with Carpenter, and Carpenter got him in, but he became the go-to DP for pretty much the 80s and part of the 90s. He was the guy. It's crazy to think. I mean, just the guy that did this movie did Jurassic Park and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future. It's just insane. I mean, but you can see it. Like, the talent is very evident.
Also, you just named three, too, that arguably have like of innovative technology incorporated with the cinematography, too, as far as effects and things. So, yeah, all that Spielberg kind of circle, Ron Howard, Zemeckis, all those guys he worked with, so multiple times.
No, this is hilarious that this is my thing that I'm so excited that he shot. He shot The Parent Trap.
I mean,
the Lindsay Lohan version?
Yes. Okay. I'm so sorry for
sorry to all the Haley Mills fans.
Known for its cinematography.
Well, I love both. I guess I just mean that is incredible that he shot both of those things. And I will say that is a beautiful movie visually. Like
it is.
I'm amazed by this.
It's not Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it is up there. And he did become known. One of the things Cundy did kind of become known for is being someone who could shoot any genre. He cut a wide swath. He wasn't just doing horror movies. He wasn't just doing action movies. He was basically shooting anything and everything and making it look great, including Lindsay Lohan movies.
Well, I feel like I could have said, okay, yeah, I see the Who Framed Roger Rabbit in there. I see the
sure.
I can envision scenes from that movie of like, oh yeah, I think in the background, I get that. But man, this guy is a shapeshifter.
I think what the people really want to know, Zoe, and I'm going to ask it. I'm going to ask the tough questions. Have you seen the Parent Trap sequel?
The Parent Trap sequel?
Didn't one just come? Oh, wait. I'm
Hold on. Here, he sucks at segues. Let me do this. In theaters right now, Freakier Friday, starring Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, who is in this movie.
I got my Lohan.
It's okay.
No, it's all right. Different remake with Lindsay Lohan. But yeah, let's...
The Lohanaissance has us all, trying to figure out what movies were our favorites.
I'll see myself out.
Jamie Lee, who I will argue, she was green at this time, actually completely unknown, as we were talking about. Deborah Hill had learned that she was Janet Leigh's daughter and took a chance on her because Psycho and Hitchcock were already such an influence on Carpenter and her in this film. And I don't know if people know this, but like Sam Loomis is a character's name in Psycho. Thomas Doyle is a character's name in Rear Window. So much like everybody in his era, they were all kind of aping Hitchcock to a degree. Some did it the rest of their lives, like Brian De Palma, and others found their own voice. But yeah, Jamie Lee, I will argue, has become an incredible actor. I mean, watching her even on The Bear these past couple seasons, I think she's phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%.
Her on The Bear is phenomenal watch. She for me is she's bringing it home on that show. I was so excited when you guys brought this up, that watching Halloween for this podcast, I had sort of like my most recent Jamie Lee exposure was that episode in The Bear. It's just her talking in the hospital with her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And man, what a freaking masterclass.
Yeah, she's really having an incredible run right now with, The Bear, obviously, Everything Everywhere All at Once. She was great in The Last Showgirl. She's now won an Oscar. It's crazy to see how far she's come. I mean, she did feel like a natural, even though it was a little rough around the edges in Halloween. But it's only in the last 5 or 6 years that she's really become a force, like a real force of nature.
Where did she show rough around the edges for you in Halloween? I'm not challenging. I'm just curious.
She's very natural. I like her because she's really natural. I do think there are points where I think everyone's a little rough around the edges in Halloween.
Okay.
I think probably that has to do with 20 shoot days and, $200,000 budgets. And so it's probably not all on her. I mean, she is very natural and she is very good in it. I do think there are spots where she feels a little new and like she's not quite there. But I think she's incredible in the movie. I think she's a little over the top in the last
Sure.
third, if I'm being honest, but I do think she's quite good. But it is funny that she did this movie and then had a little bit of it in the 80s and then kind of fell off for a long time. And she really has popped back up and is now one of the very, very best actors in Hollywood. I mean, they don't just give Oscars away, right? Like
they kind of do.
Good. Well, the Green Book excluded.
There were a lot of people angry she got it the year she got it because a few people that got it for that movie and not the other people for that movie, but whatever. But yeah, I would argue even Donald Pleasance, not his best performance, but it sounds like none of the British actors they were going after wanted to do this role due to the low budget, the low offer. This role was initially offered to Peter Cushing of Hammer Horror Films fame and Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. He said, no, thank you. That's not enough money. Christopher Lee also said, no, thank you. Little did he know, he later said it was one of his biggest regrets filmmaking wise is not taking this role. But Pleasance would go on to play him again in 2 and then return for 5 and 6 years later. But he's kind of just walking through this movie like, no, we'll get him. He's down the road. And there's people keep dying. He's like, all right, well, walk a few more blocks down the road.
What I love is it was a simpler time back then when a white man with confidence could just roll in and boss the cops around for 24 hours. Like, this dude, also hilarious to me that he's standing. Also, the other very funny moment in the movie is when he like throws his voice to scare the kids away.
Yeah.
Very funny. But I love that he's been standing there staring at this house the whole night. And then he just like looks to his right and he's like, oh, there's the car I've been looking for all night. That's just been sitting 50 feet to the right of where I'm at. Like, whoopsie, my bad. But yeah, he just kind of rolls in and bosses everybody around, has no evidence, and is just like telling the cops he's going to murder everybody. Like, in the year of our Lord 2025, this dude would be in jail.
And the concept of this evil man hasn't spoken in a decade, but I just know that he's going to murder everyone. I don't know. It's not holding much water for me.
Yeah, because he's been staring at a wall.
Yes.
So, like, trust me, I've been watching him stare at the wall.
Let me tell you.
I know exactly what house he's going.
A little of the research I did, I have to interject about this because it's really funny. This is one of those famous, has a much longer TV edit movies because it's a tight 90 or so, the theatrical version, but you watch it on basic cable or on network TV and it was like a full 2 hours. So they brought like 8 minutes back in the movie. And a lot of it is early Loomis stuff. He's confronting the young Michael Myers, like face to face in the jail saying, you fooled him, but you haven't fooled me. He's confronting the hospital board about the dangers of housing him. So like he was on to him. We just don't get to see that, unfortunately, in the final cut.
No way.
So it does exist. Like there is footage of it if you ever catch it old. And apparently there was an extended DVD that was released in the early millennium. I don't know if it's available readily. But
Halloween is one of those movies that has like 35 different Blu-ray and DVD releases. I don't know. Probably just because it's been owned by smaller companies and isn't owned by a studio. But I guess it probably is owned by a studio now. But at the time, it seemed like they would put out a special edition Halloween DVD every 2 years. It was crazy. But yeah, no, that is interesting. I don't know that I've seen the longer cut. If I have, I don't know that I saw it. Like maybe I did as a kid on TV because I think probably the first couple of times I saw this movie would have been on TV as a child. So yeah, that is interesting and not totally surprising that there's more young Michael stuff. I'd love to see more young Michael stuff. I mean, you see this kid do what he did and then it just jumps ahead and you're like, I kind of want to talk to him. Like, yeah, I want to hear why he just killed his sister. Like so yeah, there's definitely a time jump there with some interesting stuff. It's funny that we've now made 12 of these movies, but we haven't really stopped to meet young Michael very long. So that is a kind of a weird one. Going down the cast as well as we kind of work through here. The other kind of name, along with Donald Pleasance in the movie, was P.J. Souls as the blonde friend Linda. She was coming off one of the bigger supporting roles in Carrie, which was kind of a phenomenon at the time. Would go on to become a screen queen in her own right. Also had roles outside of horror like Rock and Roll High School, Breaking Away, Private Benjamin, Stripes, and then had a little bit of a renaissance with The Devil's Rejects when Rob Zombie brought her back. The other interesting thing about PJ Souls is at the time she was dating her future wife, Dennis Quaid, who was husband. The first, or did I say wife? Yeah. Sorry. Her future, I'm having one of those days, Zoe. It's been a minute. Her future husband, Dennis Quaid, who was the number one choice to play Bob, and they wanted him to play her boyfriend Bob. He wanted to do it, but had a scheduling conflict. So there was a world where Dennis Quaid was a part of the cast of Halloween.
Dennis Quaid, famously the third star of The Parent Trap.
That's true. It all comes back to the Parent Trap. It really does. The only other quote unquote known actor in the movie is Kyle Richards, who plays the role of Lindsay, the little girl being babysitted. Little girl being
off your game today.
Yeah. Well, we haven't done one of these in a couple months, so it's not like riding a bike. Kyle Richards, who played the role of Lindsay, the young girl being babysat. She was a child actor of some regard. She was in Escape from Witch Mountain and The Watcher in the Woods, two pretty big movies at the time. But she's really known for being one of the original Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and one of the two or three that. She's one of the two or three that the whole show is built around. I think she's still on it to this day. But yeah, she was so popular on that show that when David Gordon Green and his gang did the reimaginings for those final three Halloween movies, they brought her back as the grown-up Lindsay in Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and she plays a decent-sized supporting role. So yeah, Kyle Richards has been on a weird trajectory.
I had no idea. I'm not a Real Housewives gal yet, but I know her face. You know, that is an insane story.
Yeah, so my girlfriend went through a phase of Real Housewives, and when she watches a show, we watch a show. So I probably watched the first like 5 seasons, and she is one of the two housewives that everything else is kind of anchored around. She's a big part of that show. So it's her and Lisa Vanderpump, who's the one who owns all the nightclubs and stuff. So yeah, it's it's fascinating television. Let's put it that way.
But I do have a real question for Zoe. She has limited time on this planet Earth, as we all do. Do you feel like you're ever going to go down the 13 movie rabbit hole of the 6 continuities that is the Halloween franchise, or even just watching its direct sequel, Halloween 2, if nothing else, or no?
Totally.
Okay.
Already, I feel like I want to watch Halloween again, like sandwich my Black Christmas with Halloween, Black Christmas, Halloween, just to sort of reinvest and think about everything that I've, I like going into a movie without knowing so much about it. And then afterward, I'll like deep dive.
On the infinite loop, Shawn. She's caught in the infinite loop of Black.
Forgot all about Barbarian. I guess the question is, has she gotten any cultural osmosis on anything that would be considered a spoiler? Because the next movie reveals a big thing that becomes part of the lore forever until this new trilogy.
And I tried to avoid as many spoilers as possible, but there was an unavoidable. It comes up in every discussion.
Okay, then you can say Halloween. It then so we don't accidentally do it if it's a different one.
That they're trying to say they're siblings.
Yes, that's pretty much a reveal in the very next movie, which picks up, no lie, like the moment this film ends when his body is not on the ground. And I do love that about it. I mean, why wouldn't it? It blew up. Why would you not make a direct sequel?
Totally.
So yeah, 1981's Halloween 2 does pick that up, and it does begin the continuity in almost every branching version that, they are siblings. And the only thing that erased it was this brand new trilogy that just ended that David Gordon Green did, where it picked up basically from Halloween 1.
That's exactly why the David Gordon Green movies retconned everything else, was because they wanted to get away from the brother-sister nonsense of the sequels.
Yeah.
Do both of you guys see it as nonsense?
Yes.
I mean, it works okay. Again, like, there's no reason to have done it. It does feel forced, I guess.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, the first movie clearly didn't think it. It's one of those retconned things to try to draw out the series, but the first movie clearly never had that on its mind. And so, I've never, and I just don't see the need for it. Like, you can make them kind of the inevitable yin and yang, and he's coming after her in the first one for some reason that we don't know about, and it works. So I see no reason why he wouldn't continue to do the same thing for the same reason. Like, no one was begging for a reason. And so the fact that they shoehorned one in, I don't think, in general, I think a lot of the sequels fall into this trap. The more you try to explain Michael Myers' backstory, the less anyone gives a shit, and the worse it is. He is faceless evil.
Yeah.
Period. And Rob Zombie, who at least was trying to do something interesting with his reboots, he fell into that trap of trying to over-explain the backstories. And that's the kind of the one thing that didn't work about his movies. I think the more they try to get into that stuff, it's a diminishing returns thing where the movies just suffer. We don't need it. He's trying to kill Laurie for some reason. Laurie's trying not to die. Rinse and repeat.
I'm getting more comfortable with the concept of this person is the manifestation of evil. This person is the boogeyman. After seeing, have you all seen the movie The Hitcher before?
Yes.
I have.
I watched The Hitcher at the Paramount this summer, and I left the theater with these same friends, just sort of being like, but what? Where's he from? Why is he doing this? And getting really upset. And they were just being like, it's how it is, man. You got to just ride the ride. So I feel like that helped prep me for like, no,
Well, I think
don't need
that's
the why.
no, and I think it's scarier without the why.
Totally.
What isn't scary to me is I know I don't have, a little brother that's going to come back and kill me. I know I don't have it but what's really scary in life and what I think Halloween hits on is sometimes you're just in the way of the train. Like sometimes, I mean, to use a very shitty example that's very close to home for where I grew up, sometimes you're in a nightclub and someone comes in and starts shooting and their reason doesn't matter because you're just caught in the middle of it. It's like, this is why school shooter stuff is so scary. It's why any of that stuff is scary. Like what Halloween hits on is it's scarier to not know why.
Yeah.
And I think that's what great horror movies do. And the more you try to give the why, the less it's scary. And that's what the Halloween series has fallen prey to. Like life is random.
In terms of the removing the why or people trying to add the why, I do want to get y'all's take as people who have just like so much more knowledge across the genre of I've always been told or like have been I've culturally absorbed like teens who have sex in horror movies get killed fast. And then when I was watching Halloween, I was sort of like holding back on the like, oh, they're just, it doesn't feel like they were being punished for having sex to me.
Yeah, that
it
was
feels
more
like
of
they
a
were
Friday
distracted.
the 13th that became tropey, I think, with that franchise more than any. And it has carried on through.
Yeah, a lot of the Halloween copycats come from a much more male gazy angle. And you'll find a lot more of this stuff, like the sexed up friends getting killed, the final girl being, I mean, there's a little bit here of the final girl being a little more prudish, but she's not a prude in this movie. And like, I think this is, again, not to beat the dead horse, but this is a Deborah Hill thing. There were females involved in the making of this movie. And a lot of the Friday the 13th movies and, a lot of the million spinoffs that come over the next 10, 20, 30 years, they lose the subtlety and you just get a bunch of kind of what you're talking about. And also like, it's a weird non sequitur, but it's like, I used to love the show The Real World, the first couple seasons, because it was real. And then they started to figure out that like we need a virgin and a party girl and an angry black guy and a country bumpkin. And then they started casting those people and those people knew what they were cast for. And like you lose all the realness. And I think everything becomes a copy of a copy of a copy. I think that's what ends up happening with the slasher movies. By like the mid 80s, it's just gotten a lot dumber than Halloween and a lot more cookie cutter and a lot more paint by numbers.
Agreed.
I have two thoughts here. I wonder if Deborah Hill has ever talked about that feeling like it has gotten twisted over time, because I really feel like that's sort of a bad rep that horror has gotten that at the very least Halloween and Black Christmas does not deserve. I found them very like sort of like sexually liberated characters almost. And I don't know, I'm interested in
the 70s, man.
Yeah, the 70s.
The Godwin's Law is that everything goes back to the Reagan administration. And nowadays for us, like the old Godwin's Law was you talk long enough and somebody brings up Hitler, but nowadays it's like everything bad you can trace back to the Reagan era of the way sex became a shunning, sinful, shameful thing. And yeah, the kids having sex are the ones that get punished for it and stuff like that. I'm speculating out loud here, but there is something to that with the 80s where everything did become a little more shameful, I think. And that might be a reason why. Where, again, it was much more liberating in the 60s and 70s.
Do you think it was more that culturally sex was more shameful, or that producers or directors thought that hot naked girls in movies would be helpful to sales, or both?
Both.
I think it's both.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think it's both. And then it became a game of can you top this? And
sure.
Yeah.
And then it just the subtlety of Halloween and Black Christmas very quickly got left behind. Basically, Friday the 13th kind of being the biggest offender, but there are much worse stuff than that. But
you can
yeah,
also trace from this to Friday to Nightmare, all these major franchises, they all were left for dead at a moment in time. After 3 or 4, they'd take a big dip. Suddenly they'd make one with like half the budget of the previous one, and they're just not getting the return. So there's usually some kind of ebb and flow in all of these franchises. I mean, the Scream really brought back a lot of things and a lot of meta commentary on horror. And Halloween H2O, where they brought back Jamie Lee Curtis, was very much in that wave of Kevin Williamson attaching himself to that, and that was a big hit where they added a bunch of young actors. But that franchise too was kind of left for dead for a minute. So I mean, they've all had that, and I do think it's just kind of the nature of the beast with any franchise that they have to reinvent themselves every so often, whether it's not doing the same thing every time or just a whole new approach.
Yeah. Well, it's also, horror changes, the film industry changes, everything changes, like you said.
Our sensibilities change.
Movies like Halloween weren't getting made in 1998. Movies like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer were getting made in 1998. So in order to make a Halloween movie, we had to get the Kevin Williamson version. And it ebbs and it flows and it goes through, if they're going to keep it around, it's going to keep going that direction. I mean, we're about to get the Friday the 13th, A24 style. It happens with all of them. They all kind of ebb and flow based on the trends of the moment. And, Scream has actually been the one that's best stayed coherent. But yeah, Halloween is an especially mixed bag of 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, and the movie's just going way one direction and way the other based on where the world is. I mean, you've got the third one was like an anthology that had nothing to do with anything. And then pretty soon it's Satanists are involved because, of course, it's the 80s. And then we've got a Kevin Williamson version in 98. And then kind of a Dimension home video knockoff where he's karate fighting Busta Rhymes in Resurrection. And then Rob Zombie does like the down and dirty Rob Zombie remake because that's when Saw and Hostel and those movies were happening. And then David Gordon Green shows up. And now we've got a reboot, a requel, because of course we do. And so like Halloween, more so than I think any other series, has been beholden to the trends of the eras. And it's caused a wildly uneven for a series of movies that some are really good, some are pretty good, and some are really bad. And it just kind of depends. Like there's a mixed bag of stuff in Halloween, even more so than the average movie series.
Sure.
But making 12 movies, it's going to happen to some degree.
Certainly.
13.
13?
It's 13 total now.
Good God. Where does it end?
That's why I was asking earlier, like how much you're going to go down the rabbit hole, because we don't want to spoil it for you. But yeah, 2 is the direct sequel where he's not on the ground anymore. 3, they do try to redirect it into an anthology where the first 2 movies actually exist as fictional movies in that universe. You see them on a television. So it's a completely one-off if you ever just want to watch Season of the Witch, which another movie that's gotten so positively reassessed in recent decades because it was crapped upon horribly at the time.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking on that. So John Carpenter basically never wanted to go any further than the first movie. He wanted to make more Halloween movies. He wanted them all to be kind of their own thing. And he didn't want them to be Michael Myers shows up and kills someone. Michael Myers does that, which is why he left the second one. And when he came back to produce the third one, he would only do it if it didn't have Michael Myers. And so, yeah, it's the third one not having Michael Myers just caused bedlam. Like no one wanted that, but it is now, widely perceived as probably the second best movie in the series.
I am super excited to see that. That sounds awesome.
And then 4, 5, 6 actually kind of do act like a trilogy of sorts that pick up from 1 and 2. And they do, I mean, I'll just tell you, part 6 is called The Curse of Michael Myers. If you really want to know about the why, they give you too much why in 5 and 6.
It's all why. And
there's a curse?
You don't want it. 4, 5, and 6, you just want to just skip right past.
Okay, Although the highlight of part 6, grown-up Tommy Doyle, played by none other than a young Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Whoa! Yeah. That's awesome.
There's some good actors that will pop up. We talked about the H2O when Jamie Lee came back. That movie had Josh Hartnett as her son, Michelle Williams as his girlfriend, LL Cool J and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So it was like the way The Faculty and Urban Legend and all those movies at that moment were really stacked with like young actors. So you will see some names. And as he said, Busta Rhymes, the most important. Busta Rhymes and H2O Resurrection.
Well, in 4, 5, and 6, you get the Jamie stuff where like, I can't remember her name off the top
The niece, yeah.
Yeah, but the niece who becomes kind of the Laurie Strode stand-in that Michael now is obsessed with. And she's a pretty good actor. I can't remember her name for the life of me right now.
Because they're siblings, see? So he's obsessed.
Yeah.
But no, Zoe, I will say you're glad you got this knocked off the list as well as Black Christmas and others, of course. But we're very glad you saw this one.
I'm super glad, and I did want to say before we go, one of my little horror buddies, this is her number one that she watches every single year, and she was saying today that her and her friend used to come watch it on AMC, so they probably saw the scene where he's talking to young Michael.
Oh, possibly.
And they they would eat their Halloween Oreos and watch this movie, and I was just wondering what y'all's personal experiences with it. Like, is this one that you hold very close to your heart, or is it just sort of like more of an academic watch for you?
Who's hosting this show, Zoe? That's what I
No, I love that.
I do too. I do too.
Like that. That was a good question.
We finally have an adult in the room, Shawn, and we got to answer some questions. You go ahead, Shawn. I'll let you talk.
So I will say, kind of like Zoe, how this movie stands as such a force of what it was. Its legacy is larger than my love for it, maybe. I love John Carpenter. I will say that. He is so influential in my childhood. Like, Big Trouble in Little China was such a touchstone movie for me. I grew up with some of the premium cable channels and rewatched so many kind of schlocky genre 80s things, and several of his movies among them. I wouldn't even call them all schlock, but just a lot of his genre movies I grew up on and know really, really well. I would rank this in his top 5. His top shelf John Carpenter, of course. It's not my personal favorite top 2 or 3 of his, but I do love it. I had not seen it since pre-pandemic, but I would say I've probably seen it 6 or so times over my life. And partly just because it's like a Halloween season, and we always go back to this. There's not enough Halloween movies about Halloween. To this day, there's just so many horror movies people watch during the Halloween season, but not nearly enough are about the holidays. So I think by its nature, you just end up watching it near late October. So I've seen it in that regard and seen it on AMC and those type of channels over the years.
Man, if only we knew some producers who could like just fix that problem, like more Halloween themed.
We're working on it. But Cameron, you can answer as well.
Can I? I appreciate that, Shawn. No, this was one as a young horror. I mean, I was one of those kids that at the age of 5 and 6 was wandering around Blockbuster Video just renting horror movies. And my parents were just like, well, I guess he's not out doing drugs. I guess that's good. And so this was one of those rarefied air, hallowed movies, kind of from Jump Street for me. There was just something like, I had an uncle who was a big horror guy, and there was like really Halloween and The Exorcist were like the two that they were just talked about so like lovingly. And so like everyone said they were so scary. And like just from the age of 7 or 8, it was just a movie that I watched in a series that I watched all the time. And so, yeah, I was born in 1980. So I was born like I was the perfect age for these movies. But Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween were that whole series. Every time there was a new one, I would see it. And I was like right in the sweet spot age-wise. But Halloween, the original, was always like one every October or most Octobers. I would go back and rewatch. And I always, Friday the 13th of the 3 is the series I think I love the least. But Halloween and A Nightmare on Elm Street, every time a new one came out, it was like a holiday. I was at Blockbuster renting them. I was too young for most of those movies to go see them in the theater. And so it was always the kid who lived across the street from me would come over and we would watch them and order pizza, and he would get afraid and go home and not spend the night. And the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween series were kind of my gateway. Like they were the sweet spot for me when I was 10, 11, 12. And like, so even the bad ones I have such a soft spot for, but I think this Halloween I probably watched 50 times before I was 18.
Yeah. You need like the triad of rotation. The triad of slasher killers that kind of carried through the 80s too. I mean, they were the 3 biggest, most iconic ones.
Yeah, and they were putting that stuff out right as I was in my formative years. So, is it my favorite John Carpenter movie? It certainly was for a very long time. I think you could certainly make the argument that The Thing or They Live are every bit as good. It was one of those movies that it was just treated like it was in such rarefied air that, it was just on another level from everything else. Like that and The Exorcist were the two that people just talked about like, oh, they're like more than horror movies. And so
don't say the E word.
And no, we didn't know about elevated horror then. It was a simpler time. But yeah, this was one that I was very much watching all the time.
I love imagining baby Cameron being inducted into the Halloween world. That is lovely.
It's so funny because like I was that like the kid that lived across the street would always go home. I'd freak him out from the stuff I was watching, but I was never like I was always just how I am now. I was never like outwardly. It was just a thing I was into, but never in like a weird, aggressive, outward way. Like I
Wasn't
would just
your
be
only
like,
thing.
yeah, and that wasn't my only thing. I grew up playing sports and doing stuff, but I would always. It would be so funny that like you don't realize everyone's not like you until everyone's having nightmares except you, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm the weirdo here, and not these other kids who can't watch Alien for 15 minutes without running out of the room. So I guess I'm the anomaly.
You might be a little baby Michael. Do you yawn when you see other people yawn, Cameron?
I do.
Okay, good. All right.
Does everyone not do that?
There's somebody in our Paper Street team that does it. We'll talk about that later.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Is it Zoe?
It might be
Yeah.
me.
Well, yeah, she's in the outer circle. She's for sure.
You
She's
never know.
Street, family.
You never
for sure.
think you're the one they're talking about. That's crazy. I didn't know anything.
No, Zoe, we might have to check in with you in a year or so, and you just keep a list, keep a doc of some sort. Be like, these are all the horrors I have watched, and you can share them with us because we're curious to see if you follow any franchises or any. I'm glad you have that friend group that is knocking all the kind of
they're doing the Lord's work. They're doing the Lord's work. Before we let you go, Zoe, there are a couple things I want to touch on. I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on. One, I like to always ask. This isn't the most terribly quotable movie comparatively to some of the other stuff we do. But did you have a favorite line, a favorite quote, a line from the movie that really stuck with you?
Oh gosh.
There's a few that are pretty famous.
Let me think about the actual question, because my first answer would be that it's not a quote, it's these images that are just they are now seared into me. The Michael sitting up image.
Oh, yeah.
You can't call it a quote, but it is something that certainly has been repeated and something that I will do around my home now.
That's how you're going to wake up every morning?
Exactly, yeah.
I love that. Now, there's a few, I don't know that I would have a favorite one. There's the really famous two are Loomis saying, "Death's come to your little town, sheriff," and also at the end when Laurie says it was the boogeyman, and Loomis says, "As a matter of fact, it was."
Yes,
those
that was the only.
two.
Yeah.
I've always liked Sheriff Brackett's line. It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to a good scare. Like
also a great line.
I always like that line. Shawn, do you have one you like? I also like the black eyes. Well, I was going to say in the Jaws vein, black eyes like a doll's eyes. He has a very similar thing when he tries to explain Michael for the first time. He says, I wrote this one down. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left, no reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. And then he says, I spent 8 years trying to reach him, another 7 trying to keep him locked up, but he realized he was purely and simply evil.
I do have a quote. I honestly just spaced on all of Loomis, but the scene where he's calling Michael it and the nurse is saying like, can't we have a little empathy or, whatever. And just that whole exchange of him being like, yeah, okay, great.
Did he say something like, you keep talking about him like he's a man? And I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
So good. So good.
He's a grown child who can drive, guys. Come on.
That's right. With a wonk eye, we learn at the very end. But the other thing is the score, which is maybe the most famous thing in the whole movie and something John Carpenter did himself. Shawn, you're the score guy. Tell us.
Yes, he became he did his own scores in so many movies and other people's movies even. But yeah, it's very minimalist. It's one of the most distinctive elements, you would argue. Inspired by both The Exorcist, Tubular Bells, which is another very iconic one, and the soundtrack work of Italian prog rockers Goblin, who Cameron, as you know, have done some Giallo films.
Oh yeah.
But he said in a quote, the rhythm was inspired by an exercise his dad taught him on the bongos, the kind of beating out of 5/4 time. And when he took that to the piano, it just became the iconic kind of theme we know today. So, and also inspired a little bit by Psycho from Bernard Herrmann, where he's got just 2 different cues. One, the shape stalks, and one when the shape lurks. As the shape was what he was more or less known as, just as a villain. That's kind of going back to him being just a motiveless, pure evil. They called him the shape. That's even what he's described it in the screenplay. Carpenter, again, composed in just like a matter of days, much like he wrote the script in a really quick fashion. But yeah, the score carries on to this day throughout the franchise. It's kind of like the Superman score. You can't shake it. No matter how many times you reboot it, you kind of have to use it. Yeah, it's definitely an all-timer and very, like you said, it's a little close to some of the ones you talked about, but very different than the average score and very different from the average horror movie score at the time. So I think that is a big portion of why the movie is as scary as it is and has stood the test of time the way it has. So Zoe, before we let you go,
We already know you got a bunch of horror movie blind spots, but it sounds like give it a couple weeks and they're probably all going to be gone at the rate you're moving. But do you have any other big movie blind spots? Any other, very big zeitgeisty movies you haven't seen?
Endless movie blind spots.
Have you ever seen any movies?
Not even one. Here's what I will
admit. We know you've seen Spy Kids and a bunch of...
It's true. Spy Kids and The Parent Trap. I'm really bringing... A big blind spot that I will admit to is that when you guys were talking about Carpenter movies, the John Carpenter movie I know is Assault on Precinct 13. And otherwise...
Yeah, I figured you probably hadn't seen most of them because they're horror adjacent, at least. I mean, he's did some are more or less, but so you haven't seen They Live, you haven't seen Big Trouble in Little China, you haven't seen The Thing, Escape from New York?
I have seen The Thing, thankfully, and I loved The Thing.
Okay.
The Thing was great. I don't think that I've seen Big Trouble in Little China, which is crazy because I love
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I love a Kurt Russell and I love a fantastically 80s movie cover in general.
Oh, buddy, you're in for a treat because it is the most 80s movie.
And I cannot wait. Yeah.
One of my
also, I'd love to throw some weight behind They Live, which I think is just a movie both in the current climate of the world and also just
I've seen this
with the glasses.
I've seen this, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I just feel like that's a movie you would like.
It rocks. It totally rocks. Yeah.
Very cool. But you have seen like Jurassic Park and Back to the Future and those.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
We're still Jurassic Park and Back to the Future, I think, are going to be our white whales. Yeah. They're the two that we haven't been able to find anyone who hasn't seen so far. So we'll continue.
Back to the Future is a big one in my home. My partner, Jeff, that's like one of his, I mean, it's everyone's all time, but he'll sniff it out when people have not seen it. So we've had a couple of people.
He just immediately, walk into the house, he's like, something's very wrong here.
Yeah. I smell a funk.
He's like,
the energy's wrong in this room.
Yeah, something's very wrong. We got to work
Marty
on
McFly? No? Okay. Stand by.
All right. Yeah. Sit down. We're going to watch it. So yeah, you got a few Carpenters to watch, but as you go through the horror movies, I think you'll start to, his name will keep coming up and you'll start to worship at the altar of Carpenter. Basically, Carpenter and Craven are kind of the big two, you'll learn. Also, anything you want to plug or promote?
I think I have a movie coming out early November that is a horror movie. I think that it will be, just because you guys have spent time around me on set, I think will be thrilling. And I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Okay. Well, does it have a name? Are we allowed to say that?
Called The Decedent.
The Decedent. So if that comes out, you have to all go watch it. If it doesn't, you don't. So those are the rules. Well, Zoe,
curiosity piqued for sure.
Yeah, that's right. I will watch it because I will watch anything you do. But
indeed, yes.
Thank you so much for some of my favorite Zoe performances are not genre. So, but thank you for coming and slumming it with us for an hour and a half. We appreciate you doing it, and we're happy to have cleared up one of your blind spots.
Thank you so much, and y'all are the best. And I would talk movies with you any day.
All right. Well, like I said, maybe we'll reconvene in a year and you'll have a big old list of like, I saw all these things. Oh my God.
I'm going to start a spreadsheet and I'll bring it back to the pod.
We'll start doing Zoe quick hitters where we just like 5 minutes of like
30-second check-ins with Zoe each week. Yeah.
Guess what I just saw.
Love it. I love it.
I'm here for it.
Zoe saw Little Monsters. It sucked.
Okay. First of all,
stop it. It does. It's not good.
No, it's so good.
Right, we'll go before Zoe wants to blow her brains out listening to this conversation.
Thanks
so much, y'all.
Blinded by nostalgia Cameron over here. No, thank you, Zoe, for real. We're very happy to talk about this, especially given the season. So thank you, Zoe, for the time.
Thanks so much, y'all. Bye.
All right.
Bye, Zoe.
Care. All right, our thanks again to Zoe Graham, one of our favoriteest people, and we mean that. We would tell it to her face. We'll tell it behind her back. We're always happy to talk to her. Movies, otherwise, she's just one of those people that we just
She's a good egg, Shawn. She's a good egg.
She's a very good egg.
Yeah.
And I was going to try to segue that with aliens bursting out of eggs.
Really?
But one thing we didn't mention, that the Thing has come up a couple times in this podcast record, but the Thing has a little bit of a tease / prediction in this movie. A couple tidbits that we didn't touch on were in this film, Halloween, you do see them watching two different 50s sci-fi films on the television sets. One of which is the 1956 Forbidden Planet starring Naked Gun's own Leslie Nielsen. And the other is The Thing from Another World, which even at the time kind of got shortened to The Thing on occasion. It's a 1951 adaptation of the novel Who Goes There, and a story Carpenter himself would actually adapt / remake just a few years later for 1982's The Thing. Speaking of movies that get insanely positive reassessments over the decades, that movie was kind of a middling reviewed one at the time, and certainly bombed in the wake, like Blade Runner did in the wake of E.T., but nowadays, I mean, there's many people that will tell you that's Carpenter's best movie.
Yeah, I think most people at this point probably feel that's Carpenter's best movie. Have you seen The Thing from Another Planet or Another World? I have not.
I have seen the old one. Yeah, it was streaming somewhere a couple years ago in the pandemic, and I remember.
How close is its story? I mean, I
surprisingly more than you would think.
Okay, I was curious because whether it was similar story-wise.
The kind of conceit is all exactly similar. The Carpenter version changes characters and such, but
got it. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those older horror movies and sci-fi movies that are a little bit of a blind spot for me. So there's a few of those I need to go back to, and the stuff from like the 40s and the 50s. In the early 60s, I'm not as up to date on that stuff as I am from like 67 on.
The kind of drive-in style ones were very schlocky and very samey and derivative. So the ones that kind of broke out of that, you would know better. Like for every one of those big monster giant spider movies, there was like The Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet, and some that separated from the pack. Yeah,
But those are I have seen The Day the Earth Stood Still, but I haven't seen Forbidden Planet. I haven't seen They. I haven't seen. So there's some pretty big ones from that time period that are like the big sci-fi horror movies of the day, of the olden days that have gotten by me. So one of these days I'll go back and get them.
Again, we don't want to spoil too much for Zoe, but as we joke, a franchise that can make the Terminator series blush with its multiple convoluted continuities. There is the Season of the Witch timeline, in which the first two films exist in that world on their televisions. There is the Thorn, it's unofficially called the Thorn timeline, because in 4 through 6, you learn that there is a curse, the Thorn curse, which we won't spoil, but it takes movie 1, movie 2, and then jumps after 3 and picks up at 4, 5, 6. There is the H2O and Resurrection timeline, also called the Dimension timeline, because that's who had talked about the rights issues over the years.
Yeah.
Dimension made those two movies. Then there is the Rob Zombie remake timeline, which is his own Halloween 1 and his own Halloween 2, which is not a direct sequel to the 81 movie, but a direct sequel to his Halloween, and also called Halloween 2, which, again, I know Scream 5 was called Scream. There are 3 movies called Halloween. That are all Halloween movies.
It's a problem.
And then this new trilogy timeline, unofficially also called the Blumhouse timeline, is the David Gordon Green one we mentioned, which I said off air to Cameron. I have not even seen part 3 because my Paper Street brethren told me how bad it was, and I did not like 2. So I still to this day have not watched Halloween Ends.
Cameron, hot take. I preferred the second David Gordon Green one to the first David Gordon Green. So like Halloween Kills to Halloween.
Second.
I prefer Kills to Halloween, although low bar. I'm not a huge fan of any of the 3. I just...
And I don't dislike him and like Danny McBride as a writer and all these kind of people. The pedigree of the movie, it wasn't the issue. It's just it's funny how
I just there's
don't just know if I loved any of the take.
We could do a whole podcast about the baffling decisions that went into that 3 movie series.
Yeah.
Just banana stuff, like sidelining Jamie Lee Curtis for the entire second movie. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. I mean, I would argue that a lot of these timelines had their problems. But
that's the problem, is none of them are great because they all omit something that might have been useful, or they pick up from movie 1 or movie 2 only. And I don't kind of like when any of the franchises are doing that. Like there's a lot of Alien movies that did not ever happen that were like, we're going to pick it right up from the end of part 1. I'm like, well, I like part 2. Like don't retcon fully so much stuff in the universe that we all kind of just know now.
Yeah. So Shawn, gun to your head.
Yes, sir.
What is your Halloween order? Like, what is your like best to worst of this series, or that you've seen anyways?
Okay, so I've seen, other than this very final movie, this is one of the franchises I've seen every single one of. I will say 4, 5, 6. I'm not revisited in many, many years, but I still remember them. I remember the Man in Black, you know, the whole side story with the niece.
Oh, yeah.
And I would put one, I think you and I have talked about this many times. This and Nightmare on Elm Street's OGs just kind of stand alone. You never even have to watch another one. You're just like, wow, that was a good movie. This original's up there as well. So yeah, 1 far and away. I do like 3. I've always liked 3, even before the internet decided it was not shit anymore. I've always been a Season of the Witch fan. The fucking London Bridge is Falling Down song has never left my head. Silver Shamrock since I was a child.
Yeah.
I sing it off season. I sing it all year. Drives me nuts. I kind of remember liking, was it 4 that has like the really cool like fall Halloween vibe, like visually? I know that gets kind of...
4 is a little underrated, probably.
Yeah, and it doesn't go too deep into the Thorn lore yet.
So but you would take that one over Halloween 2. I feel like that might be a hot take.
No, I think it'd go 1, 2, 3, or 1, 3, 2, and then 4 maybe. And then I didn't hate the Jamie Lee first one. I thought the second one, Busta Rhymes, was absurd.
Oh, H2O, you mean?
Yeah, H2O is not bad.
Yeah,
I'm forgiving him a lot of that Kevin Williamson era, those movies.
I liked H2O. It was at such a low spot in the series that it was a shot in the arm. Whether it was the shot in the arm we needed, unclear, but at least it gave it new life. I'm an H2O apologist. Resurrection, I mean, the less you say about Resurrection, the better. For me, 1, 2, and 3, I mean, 1 is by far the best. 2 and 3, I think you could go in any order. I've always had a soft spot for 2, but probably at this point, 3 is my second favorite. And then I think I would go right to H2O. Then maybe I'm with you on 4, and then it gets real tricky. And then actually, somewhere in that grouping, I'd probably put the 2 Rob Zombie movies.
Yeah, I don't hate those. They just didn't hit me or affect me in a way that made me ever want to revisit them. I saw them both in the theater, and I don't think I ever rewatched either one of them.
Yeah, I think I watched them one other time after that. I think they're on par with H2O and 4 in that kind of middling grouping.
Yeah. I could never rank these so much as just put them in a few tiers, like top shelf, middle shelf, bottom shelf. You know?
And I think everything else is pretty much in that lesser tier. All three of the Gordon Green movies, Resurrection and 5 and 6 are all kind of in that. What are we doing here? Bucket.
Right. As every franchise gets to that point at some point, what are we doing here? But yes, we usually end this with a few other, I think we've done most of the tidbits we had written down. We do a little by the numbers deal. As we've learned doing this show that box office numbers weren't really kept well until post Star Wars. And this is right in the wake of Star Wars, but we won't go down like top 10s and stuff because we've learned that data is not always accurate either. But this did gross, as I mentioned earlier in the show, gross $70 million on a budget of around $300,000, becoming one of the most profitable box office to budget ratio movies ever, which was bested officially by Blair Witch in that regard. Credited by many as a pioneer of the slasher genre alongside stuff like Psycho, stuff like Texas Chainsaw, stuff like Black Christmas, which predated. Considered one of the greatest, most influential horror movies ever made. I knocked a few lists out here that gave it some kind of accolade or made a list. So 50 best horror movies as according to Empire, they ranked at number 3. 10 best horror movies of all time via Rolling Stone, they ranked at number 4. 31 best horror movies via Complex, they ranked at 5. Uprock's 100 best, they ranked at 7. Time Out's 100 best, they had at number 8. Watch Mojo's top 20, they had at number 8. And then Variety was like, fuck this movie, number 16 for the 100 best.
Yeah, I'm pretty much good with all of those, except Variety's got a little explaining to do. I think this thing showing up anywhere from 1 to 10 probably makes sense.
Yeah.
There are obviously movies like Halloween, like The Exorcist, like Texas Chainsaw, like Psycho, like The Shining, like Jaws, that kind of always...
Those are the ones that usually best it, if it's in a top 10.
Yeah, so, or also Night of the Living Dead probably in that grouping. So those movies, fucking throw a dart and you could land in any order of those 8 or so. I suspect that Variety list, putting it at 16, has 4 or 5 movies that have no business in front of Halloween on a list like this. But I haven't looked at it and I don't plan.
It'll be like that IndieWire one that drove you mad online and on a phone call with me.
Don't even.
Where they started adding foreign films nobody'd ever heard of. You're like, God damn it.
That was.
How do you not put Network and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on your best 70s movie list of 170s movies?
70s. That was like.
You could argue those are top 10.
They were trying so hard to be like, hey, look at all the indie and foreign stuff we know. We're so different than every other list. Oh, drove me nuts.
And that's the last time I'll tangent today. So.
Yeah.
One more time, thank you so much to Zoe Graham, who is a delightful human, and we were so glad. She was late to the party, but we're very glad she made it. And this here has been us yapping, Cameron Burns and Shawn Talley, a presentation of the Paper Street Podcast. For him, for me, thank you for listening to this nonsense. And again, don't be late to the party.
Zoe has black eyes. The devil's eyes.
Will we get sued if I sing it?